Hi guys, welcome back to my channel where we dismantle, deconstruct, and carefully analyze all of the things we were taught to believe growing up in conservative, evangelical, or fundamentalist Christian churches. For those of you who don't know, my name is Christy and I am an ex-evangelical Christian. I am now an agnostic atheist, and I want to talk about something that comes up very frequently in my conversations with Christians about God and the Bible and Jesus. Often in these conversations, I am pointing out things about the Bible that I don't agree with, things that I read and I don't like. And there are a lot of Christians that might agree that there are some unsavory things in the Bible. But the most important things we should be focusing on are the red letters, the words and the life of Jesus. They say, don't pay attention to all of that other stuff. Don't pay attention to, all of the violence and the bloodshed. Focus on what's important. Focus on the love and peace of Jesus Christ. You can't go wrong. As long as you're reading the words of Jesus, as long as you're obeying and following the words of Jesus, you can't go wrong. You're going to live a good life. They say Jesus is all love and peace, and that's all he was about. But I'm not so sure that was the case, and I don't even think Jesus would agree that that was the case. And so what I want to do is I want to take 6 times that I feel Jesus was not all about love and peace, provide them for you. You can decide for yourself what you think and how you feel about the love and peace of Jesus. We're going to start by jumping into Mark 7, starting in verse 24, if you want to read along. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. There are many scholars that suggest what's going on here is Jesus is actually insulting the woman and her child, calling them dogs. There's a lot of debate about this. There are historians that say at that time, according to some Jewish literature, the term dog was being used by some Jewish people to insult Gentiles. They would call them dogs or pigs. There are other historians that say this might not have been the case, that there isn't a lot to suggest that this was actually happening, or this term dog was commonly used as an insult toward Gentiles by the Jews. So there is debate there. However, I think when you kind of consider that this woman was not a Jew. Jesus said himself in Matthew 15:24 that his mission was to minister to the Jews, to the people of Israel. So Jesus had a very specific set of people in mind that it was his purpose to minister to, and she was not a part of those people. And so when she comes asking for this demon to be released from her daughter, Jesus doesn't just heal the daughter. He doesn't just perform the miracle right away. I mean, he says to her in response to her asking for help for her child, who is apparently suffering from demon possession, although who knows what her daughter was actually suffering from. At that time, probably some kind of an undiagnosed mental illness that people just would call demon possession. But regardless, her daughter was obviously suffering. She was a woman who felt desperate. And instead of helping her right away, Jesus says, it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. You are the dogs. I'm not going to just toss bread to the dogs. And she replies with, some might say a show of faith, I might say a show of desperation, where she says, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. She's literally asking for the crumbs of Jesus's power. She's saying, please, just let me eat of the crumbs, because I think that you can help us if you just give us a crumb. And then of course he replies and he says, you know what, for such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. Because you had faith, or because you boosted my ego, yeah, sure, I'll go ahead and heal your daughter. It didn't really seem like a situation where Jesus just genuinely wanted to help someone. He didn't even seem to want to help at first. The woman had to kind of press and beg him for a crumb of his power. And then at that point, once she begged, once she showed her desperation, once she showed her faith, then he helped her. Then he drove the demon out, whatever that means. So I just think the dismissiveness, the response, the potentially calling this woman and her child dogs, a derogatory term for someone that was an other, someone that was not a part of Jesus's core group that he was supposed to be ministering to. It just doesn't seem to me rooted in any kind of genuine compassion from a God to his people, because he didn't consider them to be his people. He had to be convinced to help them because they were outsiders. Next up is in Matthew 10, starting in verse 34. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Jesus literally says, do not suppose I have come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Jesus knew that his message was radical. He knew that his message would not be accepted by the masses. He was essentially creating his own apocalyptic cult that was kind of branching off of Judaism. And he knew that it would not be well received by those around him, Jew and Gentile alike. And so, of course, he knew that they would be, persecuted for their beliefs, for following him, for doing something very different and radical. To Jesus, this was not, bringing a message of peace to the world so that all men can know it. To Jesus and his followers, it really seemed like this was more of a battle, a spiritual and earthly battle. They were waiting for the kingdom to come here on earth, and they had to accomplish all that would be accomplished, including war and persecution and bloodshed, before all of that could be done. That's not peace. That's not a message of peace whatsoever. It's quite the opposite. And when he's saying, I have come to turn family members against one another, to make enemies out of your household members, if he's God and the peace bringer, why isn't he coming with a message that is going to unite everyone? You would think that the message of the creator of the universe come to earth to bring it would find a way to bring people together. But instead, it almost seems as though Jesus coming was an attempt to make that all boil to the surface, so that those who want to be his disciple and follow him can walk away, can shut everyone off and walk away, leave their family behind. Again, you would think that the almighty creator of the universe could come up with a solution, could come up with a message that would serve as an opportunity to uplift and unite the people, not scatter everyone away from one another. The end of it, he's saying, whoever finds their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. That's a dangerous message. He is encouraging people to become martyrers for him. Yeah, that is cult leader behavior if I've ever seen it. Somebody telling you, hey, you might die for me, and I want you to die for me. I want you to be persecuted for me. You're going to be blessed in the afterlife. Don't worry. I'll take care of you afterwards. But in this life, you need to be willing to leave your dad, leave your mom, to become enemies with everyone you love and know. Follow me even unto death. Next up is in Matthew 19, where Jesus shares his thoughts on divorce and remarriage. It starts in verse 1. When Jesus had finished saying these things, he left Galilee, went to a region of Judea, and on the other side of Jordan, large crowds followed him, and he healed them there. Some Pharisees came to test him. They asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason? Haven't you read, he replied, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, for this reason man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. Why then, they asked us, did Moses command that a man give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away? Jesus replied, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard, but it was not this way from the beginning. I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another woman, commits adultery. So what Jesus is saying here is that the worst thing you can do in a marriage, the only grounds for divorce is cheating. It's some sort of cheating, sexual immorality, stepping out on your partner and breaking that sexual bond that you two share. Now, I agree. Cheating is wrong. We should not cheat on one another. It is a violation of trust. I get that. But is that really the worst possible thing that someone could do in a relationship? I mean, can't we think of something else that would be much worse and much more valid for grounds for divorce? I think that if your partner is being abusive toward you mentally, emotionally, physically, that would be grounds for divorce. But Jesus doesn't say anything about that. Jesus doesn't say, except for immorality and instances of abuse. He says, if you get cheated on, well, then you can divorce. But otherwise, you must stay married. It just doesn't seem like a message that we should be promoting. The next passage comes in Luke 14:26. Whoever does not come to me and hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Now, this pairs right along with the other one, Matthew 10:34-38, that we just talked about, saying, don't think I came to bring peace, but a sword. I came to pit all the family members against one another. And then he reiterates that in Luke 14:26. And he says, you have to hate your family to follow me. You don't have an option. That's the only way to be my disciple. Hate your family and hate yourself. And when I bring this verse up, a lot of people like to kind of bite back and say this is clearly hyperbole. Jesus was just being extreme. He was just kind of speaking in an extreme way. He was saying, compared to him, your love must look like hate for your family. And I used to believe it. That's how I used to justify it when I was a Christian. My love for God was so rich and so intense and so extreme that compared to all of my other love, it looked like hate. I don't know that that's what was trying to be conveyed here. Because if you, again, look at Matthew 10:34-38, he's making it very clear that he's not bringing peace. You're going to be enemies with your family members, and you need to lead them all to follow me. You need to hate them. You need to just disregard them. Forget about your family. Forget about yourself. Come with me. Again, very cult leader type behavior from Jesus here. And we could say that this is hyperbole. We could say this is some kind of extreme speech, but I don't know that that's the case, because of how much Jesus reiterates these kinds of messages, and including the next one that we're going to talk about, which is when he says in Matthew 8:22, let the dead bury their own dead. It says, starting in verse 18, when Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, Teacher, I will follow wherever you go. Jesus replied, Foxes have dens, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Another disciple said to him, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. But Jesus told him, Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. Now, when I looked this verse up to see what all of the interpretations are, there are many. Some say that the father is already dead and the son needs to get the affairs in order. He needs to go and bury his father and grieve and spend that time with his family taking care of the matter before he can come with Jesus. But Jesus is saying, no, we don't have time for that. Remember, Jesus is an apocalyptic Jewish cult leader, essentially. He believes the end is coming. They need to hurry. They need to accomplish what needs to be accomplished before the kingdom can come to earth. And so he doesn't have time for people to be burying their dead. He's dead. He's gone. Come follow me. So this to me is just showing complete disregard for this man and his grief and his real life situation. And I think that is so much of the issue with the Bible and biblical stories and lessons from the Bible, is they allow no room for nuance. They allow no room for consideration of all of the complex human experiences and feelings and emotions and situations. They're so black and white, cut and dry. No, you can't do this. Follow me. No consideration for the man and what he's going through if his father just died and he's grieving and he needs to bury him. So that is one interpretation. Another interpretation is that the father is dying. Perhaps he's not in good health. The son needs to take care of him. in the last few days or months or years of his life. I even read some sources, I think this was on the Billy Graham website, kind of explaining this verse, saying that he was coming up with every excuse he could to not follow Jesus, which is funny because that really he wasn't coming up with any more than one excuse. And I don't know that it was an excuse more than it was a reason. He had something going on that in his personal life that he needed to take care of, and Jesus is disregarding it. He's dismissing it, and he's saying, no, you can't do it. You can't go be with your father in the last few years of his life. You let him die, follow me. And then there are some interpretations that kind of spin it as the father being spiritually dead, as in the father doesn't want to follow Jesus. He's not a part of that. And so, again, he needs to hate his father, leave his father, and come be Jesus's disciple. So we kind of see this repetitive theme of leave your family behind and follow me. And any person in modern times that is walking around telling people that the world is ending and that he is God or is the Son of God or is divine in some way, and everybody needs to leave home, sell everything they have, and follow him into wherever he's going, I don't think any of us would really take him seriously, especially not the Christians. So I think it's interesting that when Jesus does it, it is good, it is godly, it is the right thing, and it is love, and it is compassionate. But if anybody else were doing that, it would raise a lot of questions and concerns. And I don't think any of us would want our own family members falling into the trap of someone who's going around encouraging them to leave everything behind and follow this new traveling cult. And the last one I want to bring up comes from Matthew 17, verse 14 through 21. When they came to the crowd, a man approached Jesus and knelt before him. "Lord, have mercy on my son," he said. "He has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire or into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him." Jesus says, "You unbelieving and perverse generation, how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy here to me." Jesus rebuked the demon. It came out of the boy, and he was healed at that moment. Then the disciples came to Jesus in private and asked, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" And he replied, "Because you have so little faith. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." I just have to say that this feels very gaslighty of Jesus, okay? I do. You have these men who have left everything behind to follow him, wherever he's going, who are trusting his words, and who are attempting to cast out demons in his name. And he is yelling at them, calling them unbelieving and perverse, and saying that they don't have enough faith, and that's why they couldn't drive out the demon. By the way, if Jesus is God, if we're playing into that narrative of the fundamentalist evangelical belief that Jesus was God himself in the flesh, and he created everything, well, he created that demon. He's the one that created the demon, put the demon in the person, or allowed the demon to go in the person, and now he's getting angry that his followers can't drive the demon out because they just don't have enough faith, whatever that means. It just seems so dramatic of Jesus, and for him to just yell at these people when they are obviously trying to help, they seem concerned. They're like, "Why couldn't we do it ourselves?" He's angry with them. And then he tells them something that isn't true. And again, hyperbolic speech. He is just kind of being extreme in his speech. I get it. But he says, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to a mountain, "Move from here to there," and it will move. Nothing will be impossible. Nothing will be impossible. And we know that's not true. We know that there are people with faith every single day. There are people that wake up with sicknesses or diseases or mental illnesses that they are praying away. They are begging God. They're going to church. They're tithing. They're doing all the things, and they are pleading with God every single day to help heal them. And he doesn't. And they continue each day suffering and having faith and praying. And I'd say those people have far more than a mustard seed of faith. So nothing should be impossible for them. But yet, every single day, people's prayers go unanswered. So Jesus was lying when he said that. If he is who he says he was, if he is who the church is saying he was, then he was lying when he said that nothing is impossible if you just have a little bit of faith. This message it's just not true. It's a lie. And so when I'm looking at all of these messages. Of course, they are scattered among lots of other great teachings, golden teachings, teachings about having compassion for others, inviting the poor and the disabled to your dinner parties and feeding them rather than your rich friends, not storing up treasures on earth, very anti-capitalist. There are a lot of great messages. I get that. But when you have these messages thrown in to those messages, now we're getting mixed messages. We're getting a very confusing overall message. And I think that could be due to a lot of reasons. It's quite possible that, there was not just one Jesus, there were many Jesuses. Or, the writers were taking liberties with his words, and that's why we see so many contradictory messages. But I don't feel as though the central theme and overarching message was peace and love. Jesus very clearly said he didn't come to bring peace. And so by his own admission, that is just not true. If we are going to follow and pay attention to the words of Jesus, we need to consider all of them, not just cherry picking the ones that we like. And a lot of people could accuse me of cherry picking the ones I don't like, but I'm just choosing not to be blind or ignore the very obvious and blatant circumstances where Jesus is clearly not trying to promote a message of peace and wants his followers to know it. And I don't want to only consider the love and kindness and goodness, because guess what? We can get all of that love and kindness and goodness from other philosophical teachings, from other spiritual practices. You don't need Jesus to learn how to love your neighbor or to be kind to one another. And if Jesus is promoting this idea that you must hate your entire family to love him, and you even have to hate yourself, I'm not finding how that is a special or unique message that will lift people up, that will unite people, and will ultimately bring about peace. Maybe you've had these same thoughts, so leave them in the comments, let me know what you think, and let's talk about it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.